At the heart of global maritime trade logistics is a group of experts referred to as seafarers. As the world remember their impacts and contributions this year, we sought the views of a foremost maritime expert, Dr. Caleb Danladi, who shared his insights with Africa Weekly.
The International Day of Seafarers is a very important day that is celebrated annually every June 25th. And the purpose of this day is to celebrate the contribution of seafarers to the global trade and also to identify the challenges that seafarers are passing. As you are aware, more than 80% of global trade is being transported by sea. Every day, thousands of ships move food, they move raw material, they move medicine, they move consumable goods across the oceans and continents. And behind every vessel that move most of this commodity are the trained seafarers. So without seafarers today, the global supply chain is going to collapse because industries will struggle to get raw materials. That's how crucial seafarers are. So let's quickly look at most of the roles that the seafarers play in the global economy today. One, they move raw material from point of origin to point of destination. The cars we drive today in Nigeria, the food we consume today are being transported by ships. And without this, the seafarers, these ships are not going to transport most of these seafarers because seafarers are responsible for safe navigation of ships from one destination to the other. That is very, very important and very crucial. Another aspect is seafarers, they contribute to service to humanity. Let's look at the period of COVID-19 pandemic, when everywhere was shut down, when the global economy was shut down, but seafarers were still moving. Seafarers were still transporting all the essential materials and all the essential medication that is required for humanitarian services, which is very important. Another contribution of seafarers is very unique, which has to do with safety of life at sea, because seafarers have obligation, to rescue people when they are in distress at sea. They have this obligation wherever there is a distress. When it comes to ship or aircraft, the seafarers are the point of contact, which is very important and unique. Then let's also look at the global supply chain. The global supply chain depends mainly on seafarers because they move more than 90% of seaborne trade by volume. And if you look at the percentage of trade that is being moved is mostly by sea. And without seafarers, most of this trade and commodity will not be possible. Without seafarers, entirely the global supply chain is going to collapse. We talk about the role of seafarers in Nigerian blue economy agenda. So the Nigerian government has recognized the potential of the marine and blue economy. There has been increase in emphasis about the role of the blue economy in job creation, in economic development, and also sustainable use of ocean. Now, Nigeria's growing focus on the blue economy recognizes the vast economic potentials of ocean resources. It recognizes the potentials of inland waterways, ports, fisheries, maritime transportation, coastal tourism, and also offshore resources. So because of these potentials, seafarers are at the center to achieving this vision because they provide the skilled workforce needed to transport maritime goods, logistics, and also shipping, and also to be engaged in offshore operation and other port-related activities. So as Africa's largest economy, one of the continents that is leading in maritime transportation today, Nigeria depends heavily on maritime transport because more than 90% of imports and export is through the seaport. So therefore, it is very important and it is very crucial for us to strengthen the capacity and welfare of our citizens. How do we do that? One, we have to invest aggressively when it comes to maritime training. Maritime training and development is very important. We have to keep training seafarers. We must have a successful plan, which is very important. As these seafarers are aging, the next generation of seafarers are moving. So we need to train. We need to equip our maritime institution with state-of-the-art simulators. We need to train our seafarers with the latest curriculum and align with industry standard, which is very, very important and crucial. Another aspect is there must be a link between the academia and the industry. If you go to the maritime colleges today, a lot of seafarers produce extremely brilliant ideas when it comes to their thesis and dissertation. But How often are most of these theses and dissertation being implemented for commercial use? Is very rare. So there must be a link between the industry and the academia. Another aspect is about sea time, because without providing seafarers with sea time, we are not going to have qualified seafarers. We have a large number of maritime graduates today without the sea time. Even though the government has made a significant effort when it comes to the National Seafarer Development Program, where they have trained a lot of seafarers, but we still have a large number of seafarers that have graduated from the maritime academies, from the maritime colleges, and they don't have the opportunity to go to ships to gain the necessary requirement to become certified officer. Without sea time, we stand a risk of having shortfall of seafarers, which is very important. So the government needs to provide bed space. Private sectors is very important for private ship owners, private operators to come together to provide adequate bed space for these cadets so that they will be able to become qualified officers tomorrow. Another emphasis that we must look into is there is a growing emphasis now when it comes to decarbonization and digitalization, because the world is changing. So as the world is changing, we also need to train our seafarers on the modern maritime skill techniques that align with the international digitalization practice. Now we have the 4th generation ports, we have the 4th generation ships. So we need to train most of our seafarers when it comes to digitalization. Improving maritime education, enhancing indigenous shipping, and also creating opportunities for young maritime professionals, Nigeria can unlock a huge potential of its maritime sector.